Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Alliance, your home on the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network for any and all things Star Wars. I'm your host, Katie, and I look like a bum, but I've also changed my background again. So you never know what's going to happen around here. And joining me, as he has for the past almost month now. Congratulations, month anniversary. Almost. Next week.
Almost. Almost.
Uh, Zach is back. So, hi, Zach.
Hi, good evening. How are you doing this
Good
night?
evening indeed. I have half caffeinated coffee right here because I'm so tired. Probably a mistake, but it'll happen one way or another. So,
I think I,
anyways.
I think caffeine doesn't affect me anymore. I like the other night I was trying out a new coffee creamer. I drank like 3 cups of coffee and then fell asleep.
Oh wow. I
I,
typically drink decaf, but I was up at 3 a.m. today for reasons.
yeah, for
So.
specific reasons.
All right. So we have a lot to talk about today in terms of news, but also I feel like not a lot as well. Not as much as I think we were expecting to see.
Agreed.
Um, but we'll get there when we get there. As always, y'all, we're a part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance podcast network. We've got 8 shows, 7 days a week. So we're here 24/7 basically. You can find all the details for the shows in the description box below, whether you're on a podcatcher or on YouTube, so you can check all of that out. Um, there will be timestamps in the video below, as long as I remember to write them on my sticky note and send them to Clay. We'll see. We'll see how well I do. No promises though. But so 3 ways to support us on by listening. Obviously, that's a great way to support us. But if you could take 30 seconds and rate and review us on your favorite podcatcher of choice, whether it's the solo feed you're on or the joint feed, we really would appreciate both. Those reviews help put us in the feeds of other. Fuck it up every time. I even
Oh,
moved
you
it
were
to the
gonna get it
front.
this week. I thought you were gonna get it.
It helps put the feed into the feeds of other listeners who may not be following us on social media. One day, I will get it. One day. Um, the second way to support us is via Patreon, where we have 2 tiers. The $1 tier helps keep the film reels running around. Oh, that's the slice of film line. Oh my gosh. Helps keep the
Hey,
kyber crystals charged around here.
you needed the coffee. You said it yourself.
It did.
Man, I
We'll see
won't
how
judge
well
you.
my husband reacts to it later. So the $1 tier helps keep the kyber crystals charged around here, and the $5 tier gets y'all ad-free episodes, exclusive episodes, and any early episodes that may drop. The third and final way to support us is by listening to the ads. Yes, we're an ad-supported show, ad-supported network. Uh, I will give you a warning before those ads are to occur, but just so you know now, we don't get to choose who the ads are from, nor how many times you hear the same ad in the same episode, nor how loud those ads are. So that warning just help you prepare those volume levels. Again, we appreciate it because again, you help keep us running around here. So, with that, we will be talking about spoilers for Andor episode 6 today. Very important. It is on Disney Plus, so go watch it if you haven't, and then come back if you're afraid of spoilers because this is the place to be.
Go watch it now.
Uh, oh, so we're gonna disagree on this, is what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay. It'll be interesting.
Garrick is back in the chat. Hello, Garrick.
Hi, Garrick.
Um, so, first things first. We have to talk about some book news, some lovely book news.
Yes, yes. I'm excited about the
So,
book news. Not as much book news as I thought we were going to get, but I was happy with what we did get.
I am happy with what we get as well. Um, I am a little bit worried about Delilah Dawson taking on an Inquisitor role just because. Well, okay, first things first. Inquisitor Rises of the Red Blade is what the book is called. It will be following uh an Inquisitor. Her
She,
name is
I wasn't sure what her name was. I didn't look that up, but I remember she appeared in the Charles Soule Darth Vader run,
yes.
and she was pretty
I think
memorable. Like I remembered her character right away
yeah,
as soon as I saw her.
yeah, she's really memorable. I think it's Racked Star Wars. Did I get that right? Nope, sure didn't. Um anyways, But she is a red-skinned Inquisitor that is a former Jedi, and this will follow her journey from being a Jedi Knight to the dark side of the Sith. What did you think of the fact that it's entitled Inquisitor: Rise of the Red Blade? Like
I'm
that's typically been like a series.
it does sound like that, and that makes me wonder if they're gonna kind of do. Although, so the thing that I have to compare it to that I've been thinking of is the Jedi Fallen Order series right now, because we have like Jedi Fallen Order,
Oh,
Jedi Survivor, and so I'm kind of wondering if it is like that, like if they're maybe setting up the idea of like an Inquisitor series where each book's following a different Inquisitor or something like that. I would not be mad about that. The Inquisitors are one of my favorite things in the Disney canon. I know they're not the idea of an Inquisitor force is not, original to the Disney canon, but the version that Disney has done, like that started off in Rebels,
yeah.
they have become one of my favorite additions. I like the idea of Vader having like, his own Jedi hunting dogs, for lack of a better term. So if that's the way they wanted to go with it and give us just a series of Inquisitor books, I would be all for it.
I think so too. It could be really interesting. Here is
I
the
really like
cover.
that cover. I really like
It
that
is an
cover.
amazing cover. I'm so impressed with Del Rey recently, with their covers. I
Hmm.
think they've probably brought in a new cover artist to work specifically maybe in the Star Wars universe. Oh, I've got to remember, they're Random House Worlds now. So technically they're
Gotcha.
still under Del Rey, but they're Random House Worlds.
Okay.
Um,
I'll try to remember that
and
too.
I know I keep forgetting, and um, Tom, one of the Del Rey editors, Random House World editor, he like reminded us and was like, Convergence will be the last one with the Del Rey logo on it. So starting
Gotcha.
next year, they're gonna have them.
It'll be easier for me to remember once the logo's on there and I can actually like have a
I
visual.
think so too. It's a really cool logo though. But this is Iscats. Thank you, Wikipedia. So Redskin, I can't remember if they've like identified what type of alien she is. But it'll be cool to see. Now I personally have loved Delilah S. Dawson's book Phasma, and I
Same.
think what she's written for From a Certain Point of View books, I think those have all been really well done. Uh where it comes to an issue with a lot of people is Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, which
I don't remember much about Black Spire. I don't remember like disliking it particularly.
so I was not happy with it. I ended up getting very bored with it about halfway
Gotcha.
through, so I haven't actually finished it. But I know a lot of people um were not happy with the way I can't even remember the main character's name. The
Vi.
main character's vibe, yes. Oh my gosh. She is black as well as asexual. And a lot of people weren't happy with the way she was portrayed. Said that Dawson needed a sensitivity reader because of just some of the way things went. With especially, I think there was like a sexual assault talking, as well as like she's working with Cardinal in
Yeah.
the book, who was somebody who tortured her in Phasma, and she's just got all this like compassion for him as he's like kind of turned towards the resistance, and so I didn't find a whole lot of issue. I was just bored.
That's fair.
Um, so there's a lot of other people out there. Southern Cynic is a good one on Twitter, but there's a lot of people who know a lot better than me who can kind of speak to some of those issues. Again, I'm happy to see Dawson back. I just hope this is A, entertaining enough to keep me reading, but also B, better in the long term as far as like her sensitivity reading and everything, especially with like there's potential for Riva to be involved here, and some others. So we'll see what happens. But this book is coming out July 2023. So there is that. We got a little bit of information on Star Wars Timelines, which is out February
Hmm.
2023, as well as Star Wars 100 Objects, which is April 2023. So I'm interested in the Timelines book. I love
Timeline.
timelines.
Yes, I'm a very big timeline. I like to chart. I used to actually sit down and try and make charts of like, all right, here's all the Star Wars movies, here's the characters, and then here's what their age would be in each movie.
Yeah.
Like based on I charts are very much my thing. They always have been. So I'm very much into the timelines as well. I really want that book. I'm the 100 objects. I'm not sure how excited I am for that, but I saw some pages from it that really interested me that they showed off. So I might go
Yeah.
ahead and give that one a look as well.
I may pull that one from my local library. Remember, y'all, libraries are a great place if you're not sure if you want to go buy a book.
Yeah,
Um, so I may pull it from my local library and just kind of see. I do want to get her Skywalker: A Family at War book at some point because I still don't
same.
have that one.
I still don't
Um,
either. I was picky about it, and it caused me to miss out on it for so long. I wanted the
yeah.
Target edition that had like 3 extra chapters, and every
Yeah.
Target I went to only had the regular version. So I was like, put my foot down. I was like, no, I'm only gonna get the special one, and then I just never found it. So I need to go
Yeah,
back and give up.
I hate that whole thing with like, oh, there's extra details in this book. I don't necessarily mind like, oh, if it's a different cover or anything, but
Or like a
content
poster or
wise,
something like that.
yeah, content wise, I don't want to have to go get a specific edition of a book.
Hmm.
Like that, I don't like that. So that's also kind of why I've held off because it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Um,
I'm the same way. Yeah, if there's a version of a book or like a comic or something that has more story, I'm going to choose that version over any other special edition version you put out. That's just how my brain
yeah,
works.
I gotcha. And I mean that's why I've done like the out of print books,
Hmm.
which at this point I'm not certain there's going to be out of print for High Republic Phase 2,
I don't think so either.
and which it greatly saddens me. But granted, the covers are pretty cool, and we'll get to that.
I'm I,
Um,
I tend to get the regular cover first, and then if I can get another one, I will. So far for the High Republic, I haven't gotten any of the cool covers. I see my friends getting them, and I'm like, oh, those are cool. But I like the original covers that they have going, so I haven't been too disappointed.
so I have both copies. So I have my out of prints right there, and then I have the regular copy on the shelf because I was like, oh, I
That's
want to
awesome.
display these, but I also like having things in order on my shelf. So I
That's
bought
a
the out of
great
print ones
compromise
first.
because you can show off the really fancy ones and then have just the
Yes.
regular ones on your bookshelf.
And on my bookshelves, I don't have any of the covers on them, so they're all just
Oh, like just the
I
color. Like I
yeah.
believe didn't they start like white and then they went to black?
Yeah, I'm really kind of annoyed by that. Light of the Jedi looks really out of place. I'm
It
a
really
bookshelf
does.
snob. I'm a bookshelf snob, okay? I'm sorry.
Maybe phase two will start off black and then move to white, and then you can like put that in front and watch it like transition
That would be
chronologically.
cool. That would be cool. Um, so for the rest of the panel, they kind of delved into the comic region. So they kind of listed what's coming from Marvel in October and November, and went into depth a little bit on Star Wars Revelations, which is supposed to be the next big comic event. Not really the next big one, but like leads into the comic event of 2023.
I'm really wondering what that's gonna be about. I figure it's gonna have something to do with what's going on with Kira,
Yeah.
but like they're they're in a weird position with me personally, just like my relationship to Star Wars, because the comics are in a time zone now that I've wanted to explore for so long, which is the
Yeah.
time leading up to Return of the Jedi. But every time I think about it, I'm like, well, what could they really do in that time period? And then I read
Mhm.
the comics and they surprise me with new stories. So I'm not I know as soon as I read it, I'm gonna be like, okay, that's what they're gonna do. But up until then, I'm still just like, what big story could happen between Empire
Yeah.
Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm doing my best to keep up with the comics. I did get the High Republic 2022 issue 1 read today. And then I got Star Wars 28 read. And Star Wars 28, I'm like a little disappointed this run was so short.
Yeah.
Like I wish it was 5 issues, but yeah. Um, and then Visions, the Duel came out today, the one shot for it's like a prequel to the Duel. So
Speaking of Visions, I might be jumping around a little bit, but we got an announcement of the Star Wars Vision manga.
yes.
I'm pretty
Yes,
excited.
I'm very excited for this. It is from Viz Media, who has been working closely with the story group in terms of like the High Republic manga, which we'll
Mhm.
get into when we jump to that. And I didn't write down the time for when we started this panel. I'm sorry, Clay. It's somewhere before this point.
Somewhere before the 15-minute mark.
Somewhere before the 15-minute mark. I think it was like 4 minutes. I'm gonna write that down. 4 minutes. Four
I'm
question mark.
I'm a big fan of the Star Wars manga adaptations. I actually have all of even the non-High Republic ones. And so I'm really excited about the Star Wars Visions one. Definitely gonna be picking that one up.
I'm kind of mad that I haven't been picking up the mangas. Like I know there's the Rebels one, and then there's Leia, Princess of Alderaan, Lost Stars. So some of the really good adaptations that I'm like, ooh, I would have loved to see that. And now I'm like, where do I find them? Because like I'm trying to find epic collections for Legends, and I can't find them anywhere.
It really depends on which ones you're looking for, but I believe I hate recommending Jeff Bezos, but I know that Amazon has the what was it? The Rebels and the Leia Princess of Alderaan. I'm not
Okay.
sure about Lost Stars because I think those ones have been out for a little while.
Yeah, I think those happen too. But it may just be like I have like a Amazon watch list just to like see if I can find anything. And that's how I found Tarkin and Dark Disciple for really good prices.
That's
So,
how I found Dark Disciple for a really good price too. So I can't
yeah,
blame you one bit. I use Amazon when I have to. I have Prime, so I mean
I have Prime as well. So,
I don't want to waste money. I've accepted that I live in capitalism.
yeah, I think we all do.
Yeah.
Um, So next up, they did some detail pictures for the High Republic Chronicles of the Jedi, which is also coming in February 2023. And it showcases the four Grand Masters. And title, the full title is Star Wars: The High Republic Chronicles of the Jedi, an illustrated guide to the galaxy's golden age. And it's interesting. They have the four Grand Masters and I think there's one we haven't seen currently. But you know that I think there was one video and it showed a
Mhm.
human grandmaster. He's not featured in this picture. So edits.
Mm, retcons already.
I know. I hate that word, but what are you gonna
The
do?
dirty word.
Um, the next thing coming from Insight Editions. Read the Twitter handle, was like incited, and I was like, no. So the High Republic, the lightsaber collection is coming spring 2024, and we did learn at the High Republic panel that Phase 3 for the High Republic is coming out November 2023, and we'll talk about that more. But this is kind of showcasing you. Spring 2024 is probably going to be the end.
That kind of, you know, that's weird because it makes me realize that it hasn't been that long since the phase one started.
I know
It
because
feels like
it
it's been
came
like
out 2021.
multiple years, but now that I think about it, yeah, it's just been about a year and a half, or well, I guess almost 2 years at this point. But
I
wow,
was making the folders this morning for the High Republic comics
yeah,
because we get early editions, and I was like, wow, what year did the High Republic Marvel edition start coming out? Like 2020? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh no, it was 2021. I'm
yeah,
like,
I could have sworn because
oh,
like it was during that phase of the pandemic where time wasn't really a solid thing anymore.
yeah.
So it just kind of that goes along with the perception of it when you think back to it, I guess. Oh,
Yeah, it's really wild. But I think they've done a really good job so far. I wish it was longer and that we were able to get like more fleshed out stories. Um, but I think the author group is doing phenomenal. So,
I do too, and I like the way that they've really like they have these like time jumps even through the phases. So like phase
mhm,
one, like they would do, there was one book and then it would jump ahead a few months and like stuff was happening between, but it sets it up so that way, they could still do stories during that time period afterwards that just aren't,
yeah.
contributing to whatever the main story ends up being.
Yeah, and I think that's smart, especially if you're having that core group of authors work on specific things, then somebody new and fresh can come in and go, I'd like to tackle the story of the drink gear
Yeah.
and do it that way. So,
Is that
um,
something they've announced, by the way? Because if you just got me really excited when you said that.
no, I think we're all dying for it in some way, shape, or form. But it hasn't happened yet. So
I feel like it's coming.
I feel like it is too, but we'll see. We'll see. The last thing that was announced at the New York Comic Con panel for Star Wars Publishing is that there is a Sana Staros miniseries by Justina Ireland, which is also coming out in February 2023.
I'm really excited. I've been reading the comics long enough that I was there when Sana was first introduced. I remember when she was introduced as Sana Solo, and
Yep.
everybody was like, Han was married before Leia. Did you guys know this? And it was a big scandal among the fandom. So like I
I
was there.
remember
I was there, Gandalf. I remember.
I remember seeing that panel drop. And this was like I wasn't reading comics at the time because I was like, okay, I only have so much time. And then I saw
Yeah.
that and was like, how does that work? Like, what? No. And then I never did any digging into it. So I think it was like a couple weeks ago, but I finally read that issue
Oh,
where she
okay,
comes in
nice.
and I'm like, okay, so
It's interesting. For those of you that don't know, her and Han were pulling a scam and like faked a wedding where I think it was like there was like it's been years since I've read it, so I'm probably way off on a lot of details. But they were like there was like some contest where like somebody if they got married they won a moon or something like that. I don't remember the details. I just remember that they got married to win something because it was it's Han. Of course it's going to be a con. But I really liked that story and it made me like Sana was an interesting character to me right away just because her and Leia hit it off very well right away.
yeah,
And I
you
really
do.
like that. So and I don't know, Sana's just been one of those characters that every time she shows up in a new story, I'm like, yes. Like I remember there
Yeah.
was I want to say it was Last Shot where she shows up in like the flashbacks in the actual book and I was like, "Oh, she transitioned from the comic to the book. I love when characters do that." As soon as a character moves from one media source to another, I'm like, "Haha, they're solid." I don't know. There's just something about that that makes me really excited.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Sorry.
You're
Distracted.
good. I was too. My cat's being ornery, so I'm trying to get her attention.
All right, show that one. There we go. Okay. I was like, why did our display names disappear? And then I figured it out. So, anyway. All right. So next up on the list is the High Republic panel. And also just a shout out. Friends of the Force and the Sky Talkers podcast live tweeted both of these panels, and I have used from both live tweet threads. So we greatly appreciate y'all tweeting these so that the little people who cannot go to New York can get the information. So we have currently set up for the rest of the year is Path of Deceit, which released last week. We have several Star Wars Insider stories, High Republic, uh, Marvel comic issue 1 dropped, and will continue to drop issues monthly. So that is a 10 issue run, and it even has a little checklist in the back so you can check and make sure you have all the issues, which I thought was cool because sometimes you need that. You don't know how long a comic run's gonna go. Quest for the Hidden City releases November 1st, and The Blade also releases I think it's the second week of November, and that's a 4 issue comic run.
I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm a big Porter Engle fan, so I'm very excited.
I am excited for him too. I'm even less excited about his sister Barash and the instantiation of the Barash vow. Uh,
I did not know that was her name. All I knew was that his sister was going to be involved. I had not heard that was her name.
yeah, when they dropped the summary, it said something about his sister Barash, and I was like, his sister's name is Barash. So,
She created the vow.
um, and then the Art of the High Republic is supposed to be out in November, I think, is when it's supposed to be out. And then Convergence releases November 22nd. The Starlight Stories which is all of the insider stories from Phase 1 will be releasing in November, and then the High Republic Adventures, which is Dark Horse comic, I think that is starting in November as well.
I'm very
So
excited about the Starlight stories. I have the collections of the non-High Republic Star Wars Insiders. I don't know if you've seen those. They're really great because they collect both the legends and the canon stories, and they split them up
I
really well for you.
I'm working on getting those because I really want those. I've never been like a Star Wars Insider like subscriber, so getting those stories will be really cool for me because I know there's like some Timothy Zahn stories in there as well that
Hmm.
would be interesting to read.
There was a story from and I don't remember in which volume it was, but there's a story from I want to say it was from Christy Gold. It could be saying Christy
The
Golden.
writer for Dark Disciple.
Yeah, she actually it was a tie-in to Dark Disciple, and it's basically I can't remember. It's been a little bit since I read it, but it was like her going on a bounty hunting mission prior to Dark Disciple. I thought that was really great.
Ooh, yeah, that would be fun to read. All right. So we got to see some images from the High Republic Adventures, and lo and behold, this is the one and only Dexter Jetster.
Dexter
With
was not
a
the only one that they showed.
um
There. As I say, I don't know if it's
is
in
this one?
that one. I believe that's it. I believe that's it. I can't see it too well, but I think that's the one. My boy Therm
Okay.
Scissor Punch made an appearance.
There we go. Okay.
I I know he's
Where
in
is
there
it?
somewhere. I think he was. I think that's him by Dex, like right to the
Okay.
yeah, like right there. I think that's him. But yeah,
Okay.
they confirmed for sure it's not just some random Nephrin. It is Therm Scissor Punch from Solo, who is now confirmed to be like 400 years old. I'm very excited about this news. For those of you that don't know, Therm Scissor Punch is my, as the fans call them, glup shittos. Therm Scissor Punch is mine. As soon as I saw him in Solo, I was like, wow, there's a giant lobster man and I love him. And then I learned his name and I've never looked back. So, yes, if he's put in anything, I'm going to be excited. And so when I heard that, I had people like tagging me on Twitter, like making sure I had seen the news. So that I feel like I've made a really good presence when people start doing that for me.
Yes, I would say so. And so Dex making his appearance here, uh, obviously he looks a little slimmed down, and for me, that's not really a big deal because to me, okay, he's younger, it makes sense. He may be a little more fit. It's the same thing for me, I think, with Porter Ingle because Porter Ingle, um, he like basically is retired in Phase 1
Yeah.
and is like the chef and everything. I get other people having different perspectives, and that's fine. I completely respect that. But I really liked Daniel Jose Older's response to this. Dylan on Twitter basically was like, I wish he was still this. He was still the size he is in Attack of the Clones. To make representation a little more apparent for bigger people.
Yeah.
So and that makes complete sense. Again, everyone's welcome to their opinion. It so Daniel took that and basically went to his artist and was like, okay, how can we explain this? And so basically what they're doing for the first two issues is since those drawings are already done, um, they're going to write into the third issue that he's basically wearing armor plating, which slims him down. So I really thought that that was a good way for him to take critique and kind of modify it, add something to the story. I am really interested to see what Dex is doing with Maz Kanata, especially why he loses the mustache in the
Yeah.
future.
Well, he
So
does technically kind of have a mustache. It's just so like blended into his face, it's kind of hard to see.
I
But
guess that's true.
I think I definitely agree with you on what with Daniel Jose Older. I think him taking that criticism and running with it and not just saying, oh, I vow to do better, but actually like making an effort to do better. That's fantastic. We don't see enough of that these days, I think. Um, I also understand where the initial issue came from. I mean, it's kind of hard to show visual indicators that a character is younger when they're not a human character They don't. You
Yeah.
can't just draw wrinkles on decks and make it obvious. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they were trying to. I see where they were coming from, where they were trying to find that indicator, and I also see where people are coming from, where representation on that is something that matters. So I'm glad to hear that it's being addressed in a way that's not something that we hear so often, where it's the author just writes it off and is like, well, if I'm the author, so I get to make those decisions. So I think that's a really good way to
Yeah.
handle it.
I think so as well. So we Claudia Gray, the only thing she is set to write in this phase is this one shot for Dark Horse, which is entitled The High Republic Quest of the Jedi, which is the title of the phase.
Yeah.
Call it what you will. Um
Makes me
I
wonder if
think
that's gonna be like the oh what was the story, the one that was about Marcion or Markion, however it's officially said.
Markion one way or
We won't
another.
get into that today. We've discussed that before. But the Eye of the Storm, I'm wondering if it's gonna be like that, where it's like one story that kind of puts everything into perspective.
Potentially I could see that. Because like I think Soul's The Blade comic is more of like a personal endeavor. He wants to expand this character. Makes complete sense. I know Soul is also very busy contributing to like the shows and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm interested to see what Gray will be writing for Phase 3 though, because with
Same.
them turning it around so quickly, because Kevin Scott's Path of Vengeance is coming out in April 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're going November. So it's a very quick turnaround compared to what we had for this year, where the phase ended technically in February with the end of Eye of the Storm. So
It really makes me think that however they end phase two is going to be kind of like, so like the end of phase one was very solemn. Like we got to the end of it and we're like, oh wow, this is dark. We need to kind of stew in this for a little bit before we're ready to move on. Whereas I think phase two is kind of probably going to be maybe the opposite, where it's like it might kickstart us, where we're like, okay, we're ready to know what happens next now. So I think if they're willing to give us the next phase that soon, there's probably a good reason for it.
yeah. And we are still getting High Republic content during that time, and we'll get to that in a second.
Absolutely.
Um, so we have the High Republic Cataclysm cover,
I had not seen
which
that
had
cover yet. I heard the
yeah,
title, but I had not seen the cover. That looks really good. I like that.
yes, it is Axel Greylark, who is one of the Chancellor's son, and he is holding Jella's lightsaber, and Jella is on the cover for Convergence. So that is not spoiling anything because I have only read 6 chapters into Convergence. So I don't know what's going on, but also that's very concerning that he
Yeah.
is holding her lightsaber. What the fuck?
I mean,
So,
it's not the first time a non-Jedi has, borrowed a lightsaber, so to speak. So maybe, hopefully, it's under good circumstances. I guess we'll see, though.
right. Um so yeah, we'll see, but if you put the Convergence cover and this cover back to back, the main light that's going across the High Republic logo matches up, so it's a little V.
That's pretty
So
cool.
yep. So this one is written by Lydia Kang. This will be her first entry for the High Republic. And yeah, supposed to be coming out, I believe this is March 2023, I think is when this
Ooh,
one is.
close to my birthday.
Yes. Um, Yaddle is in Cataclysm as well, so that's good. This is the cover for Quest for Planet X, which is written by Tessa Gratton. And these two, uh, the Jedi and the guy wearing kooky goggles, those are featured in Quest for the Hidden City. And then this one is a new character, and they are non-binary. So
The Jedi on the left kind of reminds me of Vern just from a distance.
I could see that.
It might just be the similar art style as well.
Yeah, she's African American. So,
I can't.
and with
Yeah, as I say, I can't really see super well from this. For those of you
I'm
that don't
sorry,
know, I have a very small glimpse at what we're
and I
seeing here.
Yeah, and I have it on the vertical monitor. I'm sorry.
You're completely fine. No, no, it's fine. I'm just taking it's enough for me to be able to read, so I think that's good enough.
You know. So here is the Path of Vengeance cover, and this is supposed to be the end of the phase, and this is the artwork we
That's
saw
so
in the High
cool.
Republic trailer.
I'm
And
a fan of
somebody
that. I'm a fan of
it
that art.
it looks really great. And so we think this Jedi on the left behind the mother, if you're looking at the cover, then your left, not the book's left. We
Stage left.
believe that's Maddie from the High Republic comic, and this would be her master, potentially. So we
Okay.
think that's who they are. But somebody on Twitter pointed out that this imagery on the front of the cover is Markion Rose tattoos.
I heard I saw that post, so yeah, it's gonna be very
It'll be
interesting.
interesting to see how this plays out. But yes, spring 2023 is when all of these are labeled. But so the release dates that I provided as we went through each book, those are what's currently listed on Penguin Random House as well as Disney Publishing as when they're supposed to be coming out. Obviously, delays can happen. Delays have already happened with Phase 1 of the High Republic.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say delays usually do happen.
you never know. Things are getting back. Like, I feel like supply chains are opening back up and stuff.
Yeah,
So.
things have been a lot more reliable lately. That's very fair.
And we are getting a High Republic manga, which will be written by Daniel Jose Older and Tomiya Ogata, I think is how that's pronounced.
Is that what they meant
Um,
when they said volume 3 at the end of volume 2?
yes, I
So
think so. And I think we'll find out why Markion wanted to go to this planet. Maybe, oh, I can't say that yet. Um, I can't say that yet. Well, and it's from Path of Deceit, but you haven't read Path of Deceit.
I promise I will get on it because I believe that the audiobook is up on my library app like I was telling you I was waiting for. So that usually gets me through a lot quicker because I can listen to that when I'm like doing chores and stuff.
Yeah. Well, because yeah, you have next week to discuss it because the 26th we will be swamped between Tales of the Jedi and Andor. So we're
Oh man,
discussing
I'm
nothing
so
else on the
excited for Tales of
26th.
the Jedi. I'm so excited.
But this manga is entitled The Edge of Balance Precedent, and it's coming spring 2023 as well from Viz Media. Um, I think it'll be interesting to see why Markion was on the planet. And we'll get some background on that to finish it off with a volume 4, I think, in phase 3.
Do we know if it's going to be taking place on the same planet as volume 1 and 2? I think it's
That would be
not
my
not Elfrona.
assumption.
I'm hoping it is because that introduced one of my favorite ideas with the Drin which is that they can grow different types of Drin based off of the like environment that they grow in.
Yeah.
So like that's a very I mean, especially with it being manga, that feels very right. It's a very anime thing to do where it's like, there's different tiers of villains and things like that. So I like the Drin The Drin are one of my favorite things from the High Republic, so I would like to see more about that.
I would too. I really enjoy them, so. And then we got talk on the art of the High Republic. So that is again confirmed to be coming uh this fall at some point.
I really
Um,
like these guidebooks that they're introducing because I feel like those will be really good tools for getting new people into the High Republic.
I
Because
think so too.
I remember Jake Bartok when the High Republic first came out put out some illustrations of the characters as
Yeah,
like a guide, and that really helped me through Light of the Jedi and through Into the Dark. I believe it was Into the Dark was the first.
yeah.
Yeah, but like during that early phase when we were still like learning who the characters were, that was such a big help, and I think that would be really great for new people getting into it.
I think so too. It'll be really interesting to see. And I haven't owned an art of book before, and I
Me
pre-ordered
neither.
this one.
Oh,
So
really? I
yeah,
almost got the Art of Rebels book, and I just didn't have the money for it at the time. But this would be a really good first.
yeah. Charles Soule announced that he and his daughter Rosemary are writing a book entitled Yoda and the Younglings. And the cover features Yoda and Buri Yaga on it. and that is supposed to be coming not this fall 2023.
That's
So
super sweet. I had seen that art, but I had not heard. I didn't know for one that it was called Yoda and the Younglings. That's a cute name, but I also didn't know that Charles Soule wrote it with his daughter. That's adorable.
yeah, I love that, and he said in the panel that it's a book all about family. So it'll be cool to see. And then the I think it's the last announcement that coming summer 2023, we have the High Republic Young Adult Anthology, with stories written by all of the authors. So Zoraida, Tessa, Claudia, Justina, Lydia, George, Daniel Jose, Kevin, and Charles are all writing for this young adult anthology, and I love this. I love this so much.
I
Uh,
love that with the High Republic, they basically took a look and said, what types of media and like what even types of books has Star Wars made before? Now let's do that, but the High Republic. Like
you know,
I'm very much a fan of that because I like the different layers that Star Wars gets to touch. Not a lot of media franchises get to do that in such a good
yeah.
way that's so seamless with its other media. And so yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of this coming to the High Republic, and I personally just love anthology series in general.
Yeah, and like the stories of Jedi and Sith and the stories of Light and Dark, some of the best storytelling that you can get. And it just makes a huge difference being able to tell it in a short time,
Mhm.
where you can basically just jump from one character to another. And I think again, from a certain point of view, books, some of the best storytelling that Star Wars has to offer. Uh, I know you're sad about not hearing about Return of From a Certain Point of View Strikes Back.
I'm both happy and sad. I'm sad that they didn't announce it. I'm happy because I get to continue pretending they're going to put me in it. So,
Yeah.
as long as they haven't told me direct or announced that I'm not in it, then I can just continue to be ignorant and pretend I am. So I'll take it with, a grain of salt at this point.
I gotcha. So with that young adult anthology, Zoraida is writing a phase two story. Tessa is writing a post phase two story. Claudia is writing a story that is one day after the end of phase one. Justina is writing post phase one, but not phase three. Lydia is writing post phase two. George is writing post phase two. Daniel is writing a late to mid phase one story. Cavan is writing a so very nearly phase three story. And Charles is writing a close to phase three story. So we're
My
getting
favorite
close
thing
to
about
phase
that
three.
is that I'm assuming that's how they announced it, is like in that format. They knew we would follow along too because they know how sold we are on this premise. So they were probably just having fun with it at that point.
I think so as well. So yeah, I'm very excited. Potentially can see some very good Avar, Stellan, Elzar stories, but you could also like I'm presuming everybody's gonna stick with like the characters they've helped write for these. It would make sense.
I would.
So
I've always said that if I even got to just make one character for Star Wars and then they let me write a second story, you guaranteed that Star Wars character is going to be in my other story. It's just going to happen.
I think so as well. Like that, and that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah,
Is you want to
you have
continue
your
to build
baby
that
in the Star Wars
storyline.
universe.
Yeah, really. Okay, so you have not been able to read the High Republic 2022. I'm gonna write down this time because I failed to write down the time for the start of the High Republic panel.
44
So
minutes. I'm proud of you.
44.
No,
Um
I have not read it. I was looking through it. I didn't actually get to stop and read it. I had to do some dishes, unfortunately. But I feel free to jump into it. Just one issue. I'm gonna probably honestly read it as soon as we get done here. So don't feel bad. I'm right up to it.
so this issue was written by Kevin. Kevin writes the whole series. And then Ario Anadito, I believe he's here for the first 5 issues. I don't know if he's here for the full 10. But he does the art for this first one, and the art very great. I love Ario's artwork. It's really incredible. it is split up between the male character, which I can't remember his name for the life of me, and Maddie. So she's introducing him to the city of Jeddah and kind of taking them to like the main issue where a force artifact has been stolen. Not the Rod of Daybreak, point made to be had for Path of Deceit. But a force artifact has been stolen, so they're headed there. Um, and then it's split up where Maddie's master is meditating, but then she has to go handle an issue with the Convocation, which is the group of Force users, like representatives of Force users on Jeddah. So she has to handle an issue there. So that's how it's kind of split up. And it honestly feels like I feel like they increased the length of the issue just to kind of make sure they're handling everything that's going on because it felt like two very distinct stories that were happening, even though they're on the same planet and everything's happened. Obviously, things will unite.
Yeah,
But Cavan managed to break my heart again because the male
he's
Jedi
good at it.
Master,
He's good
yes,
at it.
he's very good at it. He's too good at it. It's scary. Um, the male Jedi Master at the end of the story, he basically calls somebody and is like, "Oh, you can't stop the my heart with the Force. That's not how that works. That's a giant myth." And then the guy, it looks like he stops his heart. And mm, and there's even like titles on this, like, "Oh yeah, I killed the Jedi Master," and it was like, are you kidding me? I got so attached to him because he felt like me, just having all these random panic attacks from time to time. And it's like, I should. Why did I get attached? So,
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about B2 emo for Andor, so you know that I feel the why did I get attached feelings.
yes. But I'm very confused on where the story's going to go because
Yeah.
the male Jedi Master, I'm going to keep calling him that because it's too lazy to look up his name. Um, but he's on the other issues and like featured in some of the artwork. So I don't think he's like truly dead. And it took me a minute to go, okay, maybe he's not dead. Maybe we're fine. But we'll see what happens in November. So
Yeah, it sucks that we gotta wait till November to find out. But yeah, I mean that's a very comic book thing to do. Is just like, oh no, this character's dead, and then like an issue or two later, it's like, well, they were dead, but we found this technology to bring them back or something like that. So it definitely feels comic booky. And I mean, you were talking about it being a little bit longer to kind of incorporate the story. I'm wondering if that's just because it was a number one, because they'll do that sometimes. A number one issue for a series will sometimes get a little bit extended, but I wouldn't be mad. I personally, I love my Star Wars comics, so I wouldn't be mad if they just gave them more pages going forward. But that's a very big ask.
so yeah, so I just pulled it up and it is 34 pages and the male Jedi Master's name, because I'm already here, might as well do it. Um is Vildar Mac. So Mac is his name. And let's see, compared to issue 1 for the High Republic. Oh fuck you. It won't let me open it. So issue 2, because that's the one I can open, is 24 pages. So, and issue 15, yeah, same thing. So it is longer than a traditional issue. So
Yeah,
maybe it's
for
just
sure.
for issue 1, but it could be they just needed more room to tell the story because it's only
Yeah.
10 issues. So, we'll see. Is that okay? Yeah, that was really bright. I had Google Drive open and it just like completely illuminated my face. Very distracting. This is why I can't have caffeine, y'all. This is why I can't have caffeine. All right. So we kind of closed that out. So 49 minutes. We are transitioning to, and I haven't written down a single ad time. So Clay, you're just shut out a lot. Here's a good ad time though, y'all.
Anytime you hear us say a number, Clay, just jump right in there.
Okay. So Andor episode 6. How did you feel about it? Because okay, let's get non-spoilers out of the way. And then we'll just jump right into it.
Okay.
So, what did you think?
I enjoyed it. I really I had a good time with it. There were certain things that I don't necessarily think saying upset me is probably the right term. Things I would not have done myself, I guess is a better way to put it. But they were all things that I kind of saw coming, if that makes sense. Now, going into that, I was very on edge this entire episode. They You could tell they were going for a certain vibe with the episode, and I felt like it worked on me really well.
For me, I really liked the visuals. The visuals very stunning in this.
That shot of while we're speaking of visuals, I know it's not really a spoiler because I mean it's very generalized. That shot of the TIE fighter pilot getting into their as
Yep.
the oh I want that as a background on my computer. That was so pretty. I loved that. Sorry, you said visuals, and that
Yeah.
was the first thing that popped into my head.
Well, my main thing, right, is like we have the ladies underwater using the motor to get them to I guess fortress. And then you have like the eye, right, when they're flying through the eye. And that's all just visually stunning. Like we had seen where Cassian is flying through the eye in the cockpit, and we had seen that and gone, oh, okay, he's flying through hyperspace. No, he is flying through this meteor shower that looks fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
So
it was cool.
I think Susanna White did another incredible job with the directing in this. She got some
Mhm.
very good shots. She also got some really good performances, particularly out of Vel and I think some of the Imperials actually.
I was gonna
So,
actually mention the Imperials. I felt like usually Imperial officers feel very throwaway, and I felt like all of the
mhm.
characters in this felt like they served a really good purpose to the plot of this episode.
Yeah, I think they did too. Um, Now I know one of the critiques of the episode that has been going around on Twitter is that the commandant for the Imperial base, his wife basically calls him fat because he
Ah,
can't put the sash on. And I think it's more supposed to be a commentary on the fact that Imperials are getting lazy and they feel secure in their positioning. But I think it's also a valid critique. We make some jokes about fat people, and that needs to change. So,
I agree, and while we're kind of bringing up that it's trying to be a commentary on it. I mean, if we're being direct, Cassian himself has straight up said the Imperials get so fat. Like when he's talking about how lazy they are, so it is something that I think they need to address, because I don't think it's something that should just be used as a term for like slovenliness or anything bad. um i I kind of can we kind of harkening back to what we were talking about earlier with like Porter Engle. I took it when I watched it as a sign of he's aging.
yeah.
Like he's like, well, I've had this forever and it always fit me. And she's like, well, maybe it's not fitting you. And like, I don't know. It just, I've had that conversation before where I'm like, I had these jeans for 6 years. Why don't they fit now? And it's like, because you're not the same size you were 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely understand where it comes from. That was not how I took it in the moment, but I always, I like going back to watch these things with new eyes, because it helps me learn my own sensitivity issues as well.
I think so too. The well, we'll talk about that kind of in the spoiler section. Um,
Gotcha.
but I think my main issue with this episode that kind of throws me off is the final couple minutes. One of the characters makes a decision that I don't feel like works with the rest of his arc.
I think I know what you're
And
talking about, and I think I completely agree.
And it really kind of pissed me off because it felt like this huge ginormous jump. And even watching it back a second time, because the first time I watched this, it was 3 a.m. And so I did miss a couple things this morning. But watching it again while Matt and I were eating dinner, it doesn't change my perspective on that final scene. Um, like it really feels like a okay, we need to get rid of this character moment. So let's
Yep.
just go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
And I think with the way the characters have been building, it really sucks.
Yeah, I know exactly what moment you're talking about. I'll try not to get into spoilers with it, but it was something I was kind of hesitant about going into this episode, thinking that it was something they would probably do, and I was still upset to see that it happened. So I know exactly what you're talking about. That's all I'm going to
So
say, so I don't get into spoilers.
well, let's go ahead and jump into spoilers.
Okay.
So the majority of this episode takes place on Aldani, where, like we said last week, they're basically doing the mission. We do get a glimpse into Deidre's job as a member of the ISB at the end. Mon Mothma as a senator, she is continuing to speak on the Gorman issue. And then we get Luthen in his shop of antiquities,
I did.
realizing that the mission on Aldani took place.
I must have zoned out because I didn't remember seeing anything from what's her name, the ISB agent. I remember seeing Mon Mothma. I remember
Deidre.
seeing Luthen. Yeah, Deidre, but I did not remember seeing her. So maybe I just kind of zoned out for a second while
It
it was
is
focusing
it
on
is
her.
very quick. It's 20 seconds long.
Okay,
Because the attack in quotes on Aldani takes place. ISB is basically getting all of their shit together and going, okay,
gotcha,
how do we handle this? So that's
gotcha.
all it is. It's very quick. So Matt made a comment this afternoon when we were watching the episode again that he doesn't get Mon Mothma being here for this part, but she is speaking on behalf of the Gormans, which we all know from Star Wars Rebels is the point where she speaks openly against the Empire.
Yes,
So this is mainly just a quick 30-second bit in order to move along the story. And
agreed.
so you can get her to that point, I think. Would you agree, disagree?
I would completely agree with that, and I really think because I was thinking the whole time leading up to that we just weren't going to get Luthen or Mon Mothma in this episode. I was thinking it was just going to be a Cassian episode, and I was completely fine with that. So when she showed up, I was like, this kind of feels a little weird and tacked on. And then it showed everybody like in the Senate getting the news, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. So that I like the idea of like that's one of my favorite things in spy movies is when the people who are secretly involved in the plot start learning that the plot is happening. I don't know that it's a trope, but I love when it happens. So I was like, okay, I see what's going on. And then even more so than Mon Mothma when Luthen learned. Oh my goodness, Stellan Skarsgård is so good as this character. He was on screen for like what 10, 15 seconds, and
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, Lewis Steven or Stellan stealing the show because like he goes through such a range of emotions in such a short time, and I felt all of it. Like I really did feel him. I don't know it. That's something that I feel like is what I judge most performances based off of is do I feel what the character is feeling, and he is really making me feel what Luthen is feeling.
Yeah, completely. And him like just laughing at the end, going, "Oh my gosh, this actually worked. I didn't think it was actually going to work," is basically what you're getting from his performance, and it it really works.
He went full crazed madman with it, and I loved it. Like, it was so good.
Yep. All right. So the Eldani mission. As a reminder, their goal was to steal the entirety of the Imperial payroll for a complete sector, and a sector being multiple systems.
I'm
Basically, is what
gonna
it works out.
I'm gonna tell you my moment that I felt really dumb watching this today. So the whole time they've been saying they were gonna steal the payroll for an imperial sector, my mind thought the information, like the paperwork, and I was like, oh, maybe it gives them just a lot of info on whatever's going on in that sector. That makes a lot of sense. And like I did not put it together that they just meant the money they are paying these people with. So when they started loading it up, I was like, oh, they're just stealing money. Like I felt so ridiculous. So this whole time I've been thinking they were stealing imperial payroll paperwork. So yeah, that was
I,
my silly moment this morning.
I will make you feel a lot better and tell you that I thought the same thing when they first said it, and then I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. They're just here to steal money, especially after Mon Mothma comes in and is like, I can't move the money. I was like, okay, they're looking for money. So I thought it too at one point. So
As soon as
nothing's
she,
weird.
as soon as I saw it was money, that was what I thought of was Mon Mothma saying she couldn't move the money, and I was like, they set this up. I just didn't put it together. So yeah.
So during the mission, they like I don't want to talk about the mission. Like the mission is basically like any average
Yeah.
heist, I feel like, is
Do you watch
basically
House of the Dragon? There is a reason for this
yes.
question. Okay,
So okay,
the
hang
Imperial
on. Shameless
officer's
plug.
son. Yeah, go for it.
Shameless plug. Matt and I are reviewing it week to week. So you can scroll back a couple of days in the joint feed, and find our latest review of episode 8. So it has gotten some great results with pulling in listeners, and so I really appreciate all of y'all listening to it. Okay, shameless plug done.
No, you shameless plug away. I'm happy with it. But the reason I brought it up is I still need to look it up to verify, but I'm 99% sure that the Imperial officer's son that was like with them when they were performing the heist was Lord Blackwell from, I want to say, episode 4 or 5, when Rhaenyra is like, interviewing potential husbands, and those two like teenage boys get into the duel right there in the courtroom. I'm pretty sure that's who that kid was, because it immediately, I saw him and that was who I was thinking it was. So I'm gonna have to verify that.
Oh, I was trying to how here we go. House of the Dragon. I can see that real fast, see if it's in the Wikipedia. Blackwell. Control F. Black. Nope.
Or
Not on the Wikipedia. Okay.
Blackwood, sorry, not Blackwell. So portrayed
No.
by, it says, okay, so Blackwood was portrayed by Alfie Todd. I'm gonna Google his.
Ow.
I'm probably wrong. Wait, I should just look up today's episode of Andor on Wikipedia.
uh
They'll steer me in the right direction.
it doesn't look like it. So he's only
Man, I
credited in
really
House of the Dragon.
I really thought that I had something there.
You know, but the chieftain really looked like what's his name from Breaking Bad.
Okay, I'm not the only one who thought that. Okay, had that same thought, and I was like, I know it's not him, but it kind of looks like him. So
And you
okay,
know, people have been coming randomly into Star Wars and just doing these things, and I was like, okay, they decided to let him keep his face and not put him behind
yeah,
an alien. Whatever.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
it wasn't him.
No.
I can't even remember who he was. Actually, Matt texted me who he was because we were thinking that this morning. So, um, his name is David Heyman, who is a veteran Scottish actor. So,
Okay.
so that was who the chieftain was. It was not Breaking Bad guy. Um, but I really, even looking at it a second time after knowing it was David Heyman, I was like, that's Breaking Bad guy. No, it's not.
It definitely looked like him. I completely thought that. They don't have
I'm
an
gonna.
actor listed for the young kid from today's Andor, so I guess
I don't
I'll wait a week. We'll see if I'm right.
know.
After some time, we'll see if I come back next week triumphant.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So the mission happens. It does feel very much kind of like an Ocean's 11 vibe
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
where everything's taking place when it's supposed to be. They're a little behind. Um and they end up in the vault area with the ship. So the vault is conveniently right next to the ship that they need to take off on.
Yeah,
So they get
that was
there.
very quick.
It's very convenient, very quick. But they get there, and we have Vel, Terramin, Nemec, and Skeen all with the commandant, because the commandant has to use his palm to unlock the vault. And Cinta is left behind with the prisoners, which include the commandant's family, as well as basically like the chefs and the comm unit people. Uh, so I was very happy they showed like a tender hand moment between Vel and Cinta. I think that further confirms they're in a relationship.
If that
And
doesn't, and they're like, well, no, she's really with this guy. It's gonna make me rip my hair out. I'm just gonna say that
it
right now.
will, it will. Because one of the things that I can appreciate, because a lot of people end up dying in this episode. Spoiler alert, we're about to
Yeah,
get to it. But I can appreciate that there was, as of yet, no bury your gays trope.
agreed. Yeah, just let
So
the space lesbians be happy, please.
yes, please. Um, so we get there and they loaded up a good portion of the payroll, and a comms officer who was being a little too nosy decided to go investigate
Yeah,
because he heard the comm chatter between Cinta as well as Tarman. So he gets down there with some other guard units, and the Aldani team ends up getting pinned down. Taraman actually ends up getting shot, as well as Lieutenant Gorn. And of course, these are your two black people on the team. So,
yeah. I I kind of thought Tarman was doomed because we literally
mhm,
only just learned our first real detail about him this episode.
yeah,
Everybody else, I felt like got a little. Even Gorn got more spotlight last episode than he did, and so I was like, yeah, that they're giving everybody else some attention, and he's just kind of there. So it felt like he was going to be the first person to die to me right away. But then when Gorn died, I was sad. I was really hoping Gorn was going to be kind of like a Callus, where
yeah.
join the group officially, because I mean, at that point he had burned his position within the Empire. That was clear. So I find that it would have been, or I personally think it would have been more interesting had he been allowed to live and have to deal within an empire where he is now, a traitor.
And I think you could have still worked it out, like, oh, if he got shot and left behind, your commandant's basically dead, and everybody else ended up dead. And it
Yeah,
would have been really easy for Gorn to convince people, oh, I got kidnapped, I got shot as a part of it, but I was no part of it. So
yeah.
I was doing the same thing. Um, so I don't like it. And Clay even texted me to make a point out of like, you killed your two black people, really?
Yeah.
The only other thing I have to really say about it is you couldn't kill Cassian because obviously he can't die yet.
Yeah.
Um, and then we have Vel, who's kind of the big link back to Luthen. She's gonna know how to get back in contact with Luthen. Cinta manages to escape back into the crowd. I don't know what's gonna happen to her.
I kind of don't think we've seen the last of Valencinta. I mean, everybody
Me
else
too.
seems, pretty done for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think Vel and Cinta both have a very good chance of appearing later on down the road.
Yep. Talaric one, welcome to the chat. They said I liked Gorn. He already lost everything, so this was his at least some revenge.
I
And I
like
agree.
Gorn too.
I really liked him, and I liked the fact that he spoke back to the commandant, and was like, "I've lived with you for 7 years. I deserve a lot worse."
Yeah, he's like, they'll hang you for this. He's like, I deserve it. I was like, oh, that's a good line.
Yes.
Uh, I really liked. He had a brief moment that I liked this episode where they were talking. It was like when they were talking about exchanging the furs as part of that ceremony, and that commandant was basically just like shit talking these villagers.
Yeah.
He just got this look on his face, and I was like, he wants to punch that guy right now. Like, I felt it. Gorn, the actor that plays Gorn, I really like what he's got going.
Yeah, he did a really great job, and it kind of just shows you the disrespect that the Empire had towards other cultures, coming in and just kind of going,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, I'll respect your tradition, but I'm not actually going to." So,
I thought this did a good job of showing the early stages in the Empire where they're still pretending to care. Because we
yeah.
know they reach a point where they stop even pretending. They'll just bust up in a place and tear it up. So seeing in the Empire where they're like, haha, we're treating these savages with fake respect so that way they give us things. It's interesting that we're getting to see that side, because I've always thought of Andor since they announced it, like this is going to be a show about the early rebellion. I never really considered that it would be a show about the early empire as well, but it is. Like I've always kind of thought of Bad Batch more as that show, so I like seeing it from multiple perspectives.
Yeah. So we kind of end up taking off, and during takeoff, uh, we have Skeen, Nimic, and Vel on board. And like I said, Cinta has basically made her escape out of the building. Uh, and so they take off, and one of the carts of credits ends up basically they take off and everybody goes flying, and Nimic ends up behind one of the carts and is
Crushed.
basically crushed. Yeah, hit spine severed,
I
organs.
saw a meme that said, of course they would kill the space communist with a pile of money. I felt so bad, but I was
It's
like,
so
yeah,
sad, but also,
it's accurate. That's what they did.
yeah.
Yeah, I felt
Um,
so bad. I think we all kind of knew Nemec was gonna die. Like I think we all kind of saw it coming.
I think
Um,
so too.
I didn't see it coming like that. So what I thought was gonna happen, there was a genuine moment. It was when Cassian was getting headlocked by that one officer, the one that Nemec
Yeah.
actually shot earlier. I thought what was gonna happen was I thought Nemec was gonna turn and shoot that guy, and then somebody was gonna shoot him. So I was like, here's where it ends. Here's where Nemec's dead. So when he didn't, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I don't know, it just, I, I went into this with a lot of unease around Nemec. So I didn't let it up either. Even when I thought he was okay, I was still like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. Like
Yeah.
I kind of went into it with like a Saving Private Ryan mentality. Like I don't think anybody's getting out of this, just so that way if somebody does, then I'll be pleasantly surprised.
That's a good way to approach Star Wars right now, unfortunately.
Especially Rogue One adjacent Star Wars.
Yes. Yes. So Vel basically gives Nemec a shot of adrenaline, and because unfortunately he's the only one that can direct them out of the eye and into space. So he has to be the one controlling the directions and coordinates given. So he does all that, and I just want to address something.
Okay.
So Decider published a feature that was like, "Oh, a Rogue One Easter egg you might have missed." And I was like, "Oh, okay." They planned this all along. Cassian must have had the journal, and because I saw this after watching it this morning, and I was like, oh, "Okay, so Cassian has the journal with him in Rogue One." And that's the Easter egg we're missing because I had seen that they had in the header Cassian and Nimic. No, the Easter egg was the fact that Nimic's last words basically were climb, which are K2SO's last words.
That's not a Rogue
I
One
was
Easter egg.
so
Just a
pissed. I
word.
was like, I just wasted my time reading this. This is the stupidest thing.
Oh
One
god.
word is not an Easter egg.
No. They said the same things right before they died. That's an Easter egg, right?
And the reasoning was like, oh, well, now we know Cassian truly feels anguish because Nimic's last words were this. And I'm like, he knew Nimic for 3 days. And obviously he may get more attached to him because of the manifesto and everything. We don't know. But he knew K2SO for a lot longer.
All that
His
means
emotions are not going to change.
all that means is that had Cassian survived Scarif, he would have PTSD around the word climb. That's it.
Yeah. And climb is not even Nimic's last word. Like,
It's
it is
not.
like,
No, he says
it's the
other
first
things.
word. Yes. And they're like, oh yeah, it's basically his last word. And I'm like, no. Fuck no. Don't write stupid shit and put it on the internet, people. Or better yet, hire me to write your stupid shit because at least I could have come up with a better Easter egg than that shit.
You
Fuck.
just did. I mean, you just did come up with a better Easter egg, so.
Yeah. Oh, we see the journal tucked in his coat or something. Like, I don't know. Whatever. It was so stupid. I was pissed. I'm still
Honestly,
pissed, clearly.
you could literally just write an article that says, well, Cassian obviously felt something because he joined the Rebel Alliance, and that would have been more of a real connection.
Yes. Thank you. We now know why Cassian joins the Rebel Alliance. This
Yeah,
manifesto.
that alone would have been enough.
Instead, I read 700 words on some stupid bullshit. So,
Well, thank you for reading it so I didn't have to.
you're welcome. And you're welcome, everyone who's listening. So, do not click on that article. Please, don't. Do not give them any more clicks. All right. So Skeen is basically like, okay, we planned this doctor into the as a part of contingency plans. We need to take Mimic to him. And Vel's like, he's dying. There's really nothing that can be done. We just need to head to our rendezvous points. Uh, and Cassian's like, where do we go to get to the doctor?
Okay, so as soon as Cassian said that, I was like, I love you, Cassian. Like he was like, no, it's not a choice for him, and that made me really happy. Like Cassian's the kind of character a lot of people like to call him, the kind of character that'll do whatever it takes to get what he needs to survive, which is true, but he's also the kind of character that if he sees an opportunity to do the right thing, he's going to take it. And I like getting those little reminders that, yeah, Cassian does some shady stuff, but there's a good person in there. It's just under some layers.
He's an onion. He's got
Yeah.
layers.
Yes, exactly. He's a Shrek.
So they get to the doctor, and I don't know if this was on Aldani or if it was on another planet. We don't get a name. I'm presuming that's because we're only here for so long. But the doctor's name is Dr. Quadpaw because he has 4 arms.
I remembered seeing this doctor in the trailer, but for some reason my brain thought it was in the Mandalorian season 3 trailer. And so when I saw him, I was like, oh, that was Andor. And then I immediately got sad because I was like, I remember this exact shot, like the shot of him operating on Nemec. I was like, oh, I remember seeing this exact shot in the trailer, and I never like put it together. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't go back and rewatch the trailers because that probably would have spoiled that for me.
Yeah. So he's operating, and Vel is assisting the best she can. And so Skeen and Cassian are on their own, and this is the big problem I have, right?
Same.
So Skeen basically goes, how much money you think is in that ship? Cassian doesn't really answer. He's like, what does it matter? It's going to the rebellion, blah, 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 blah. And Skeen's like, 80 billion, give or take. You know what would go well? 40 million credits. We could split it.
This was one of my favorite Cassian moments, but one of my least favorite moments in the whole series.
I feel like Cassian shooting him, though, is a little drastic. Because what if this was a trap and Skeen was trying to test his loyalty?
Okay, so that was what I initially thought it was. I was like, I feel like Skeen's trying to test his loyalty. With Cassian shooting him, I think that was to further reinforce that Cassian does not trust anyone. Like, and it's something we know, but it's also, I don't know, like, everybody, like, I've seen it on Twitter, everybody felt like he was getting close to this group. And so we all kind of thought like, well, they're going to have to die because he can't get close to anybody. So I do like seeing these little reminders that, oh yeah, there is a part of Cassian that will shoot you dead if he thinks that you're going to pose any sort of threat to him. And so that is something that they need to remind us of, because we know for a fact that by Rogue One, he's not, sunshine and kittens kind of rebel. He's not the kind of rebel that gets to make propaganda videos. He's the kind of rebel that's going to shoot a guy in the back in an alleyway, or he's the kind of rebel that's going to shoot Jyn Erso's father just because he was told he needed to. So I do appreciate that they're using these little moments to keep the story consistent, but I did not feel like it was consistent with Skeen's character.
Yes, because we get this really emotional moment, right, in the last episode where Skeen tells us about his brother, and Cassian asks him about it in this moment. Your brother with the orchard. And Skeen goes, I don't have a brother. Where the fuck did that come from? Why are you even here then? Why are you on Aldani?
See, I'm trying to justify that line that in my head, the orchard story is okay. So this is my headcanon. Nothing to back it up, just my headcanon. The orchard story was true, but in that moment, Skeen thought, I would rather have 40 million than a dead brother that I want to seek revenge on. So in his mind, saying I don't have a brother is his way of saying my brother's dead, I need to move on, and 40 million credits is going to help me do that. could be wrong. He could have just been lying the whole time, but that's how I'm going to choose to view it until proven otherwise. Because I feel like that is still true to his character arc, but I don't think, I don't know. I was paying attention during this heist. He was in it. He was not just in it to get the money. Like, he was very, him and Nemec specifically had a relationship, and I fully believed it when he said, like, we need to get Nemec to the doctor. So, like you were saying, he had a moment this last episode. He had a moment like 5 minutes before
Yeah.
this one where he's like, all of a sudden, like, well, 40 million credits is enough to make me betray the rebellion. And I appreciate as well that they're trying to show how fragile things are for the rebellion, that, one person screwing them over could turn everything. I just wish it hadn't been him, because they really had sold me on his wanting revenge. I know that he wasn't completely noble. He specified he was there for revenge. He wasn't there for justice. But I don't know. I kind of wish they had kept to that. I didn't want it to be, well, there's money there now. I can take it. I didn't. I also didn't want him suggesting them go to the doctor just be a reason to get the ship alone. I felt like that's what it feels like now. Is it doesn't feel like he
Yeah.
suggested the doctor to help Nemec. It felt like he suggested the doctor so that way he could distract Vel to take the ship. And I don't like that. I don't like questioning everything I felt about a character. I mean, it's like you found out a friend was lying to you about something for a long time, and then you have to go back and reevaluate every decision with it. I don't like that.
Yeah, and I get showcasing different parts of the rebellion and different parts of who humans are, and how quickly things can turn. Um, but it doesn't make sense why he would be here
Agreed.
if he's not there. And in like you had in the shootout at the end of the mission, you have Tarman going, cover me, and Skeen gives one shot and takes out a person. He has an opportunity to get another shot off, but instead hides behind the pillar again and is like, I wish I could have done more. So you could think, oh, okay, maybe he was setting all these people up, like Joker or somebody, like going, oh, okay, I'm gonna back up now because he can just get shot. That's fine, and I'll have
Yeah.
more money. So you could say that, but at the same time, it's like I don't understand why he would get here because no one would know from randomly that this mission was going to happen and you were going to take payroll.
Well,
You would
and
have to get trusted to do that. Cassian's the exception, not the rule.
no, I completely agreed. And that was one thing, was like you said, Cassian's the exception, not the rule. They vetted. Said they had vetted everybody that was part of that
Yeah.
group. And something else, like you said, they did. I didn't feel like they set up him wanting the money, and even at all. Like, there was no, like, oh, I owe a lot of debt or anything. Like, yeah, he went to prison, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's gonna betray the people he's been living with for months at this point. Like, he's been
Mhm.
living with them for months. That just that we know of, that they've been surveying the area. For all we know, he's with them even longer than that. So, I mean, it didn't feel like there was anything they did with this character except for saying he was in prison once and he wants revenge, to even set him up as a character that would do that. And we've been talking about insensitivity in the storytelling. I think it's a little insensitive to just say, this guy's an ex-con, so of course he's going to be the kind of person to betray his crew. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, that, I don't know. It just didn't really sit right with me. That was the one big issue I had with the episode.
The only justification that I could possibly make would be the fact that okay, he's seen all these people die and now he wants out and this is the perfect opportunity. You go, okay, you take money, I'll take money. We both want to survive. That's all it has to be.
If you told me, or if whoever wrote this episode came out and said he did not plan any of that, he just decided in that moment to take the money, that would maybe ease my concerns a little bit, because it did. I don't know. I walked away with a thinking like, oh, I guess they were trying to tell me that Skeen was a bad guy the whole time. But if you were, I like what you just suggested, that it may have just been in the moment. He's like, well, everybody died. We kind of messed this one up. I mean, we got the money, but everybody else is dead. Why don't we just take it? But
Yeah, and
even
but they
then,
needed to
Nemec's
have
still
thrown a
alive.
line. They need to throw in a line to make that happen. Because
Yes.
if you go, well, everybody's just died. I don't want to die. And
Yeah,
you throw that in there, it makes a lot more sense for his character, but they didn't do that. They just,
no,
and he doesn't even
money.
know Nemec's dead.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, like Nemec, we don't even know Nemec's dead until after that. So at
Yeah.
that point, he is just fully like, well, my buddy's in there, paralyzed, probably gonna die. Let's abandon him. And it's like you've been treating this guy like he's your younger brother that you would do anything for, and now I don't know. I know that 40 million credits is a lot because they showed us that 30,000 credits is a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm I I don't know the dollar to credit ratio, but at this point I have to assume it's a one for one just, for this specific story in the way that they're kind of positing credits. 30,000, 40 million, those are big numbers in dollars, so I'm just going to kind of lean into that and assume it's the same. So I mean, yeah, that's a lot of money. That's life-changing amount of money. And he even tells Cassian, because Cassian says, what happens to me? And he says 40 million credits is enough to make me forget about you. I I don't think I believed him. And like that's
Yeah.
where I feel like I don't know. It's weird saying that I feel like Cassian was justified in shooting him, but I 100% understand why Cassian did shoot him
I
because
understand too. I would have stunned him, but we've never been shown how long it takes to switch a blaster from stun from shooting. So
I
there's
never
that.
think about stun as an option until somebody uses the stun as an option in the show. Like I never think like, oh yeah, they have a stun. It's just like, oh, they stun that person. Oh right, they have stun. Like that's my brain never considers stun. And I know that using the role playing games as a source, that's probably not the best source. But some guns just don't have a stun feature in that game.
Yeah,
So that may be the case for his pistol, is that it's just straight up kill only.
maybe. We don't know. We had Talaric and Lewis popping off in the chat during the discussion, so I'm going to share their points. Talaric
Yes.
said, I thought that Skeen might have been feeling him out, like we talked about, but after Andor led him along so much, it felt right that if Andor declined, he would have died. I figured Skeen went to the doctor to steal the ship. Completely fine. Um,
Yeah,
Lewis
I
said he.
definitely think. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say
No,
I
you're good.
definitely think
Go
that
for it.
if he had denied Skeen, he would have been shot. Like
Yeah, something would have happened. He would have been incapacitated, something. But Skeen specifically said he couldn't fly the ship. So
yeah.
what was he gonna do? Lewis said hope to get Morbius's girlfriend back, aka
I was gonna ask
oh
who's
gosh,
Morbius's girlfriend.
it's Adria Arjona, which is Bix.
Oh, okay. Now I need to watch Morbius.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No,
I'm
you don't.
I've been saying I'm going to, and the only reason I haven't is because I feel like this fake version of the movie that the internet jokes about is a lot funnier to me than whatever the real version is going to be. So I'm just living in that fantasy world for a little bit longer.
Uh, yeah, don't watch it. Lewis said he also hopes for Saw next episode and hopes to get more Luthen. I definitely think we're gonna get more Luthen. I don't know if we're gonna get Saw just yet. I think Saw is going to be towards the last end of the season. Because we have a Steven Schiff episode coming up. So I feel like this one, if anything's going to be filling the season, this one will be because this is the only episode he's writing. Um, and then we're moving into a Willimon arc where he writes 3 episodes, and then the season ends with Tony Gilroy writing both episodes. So I feel like next week's gonna be filler, but
Probably.
we're gonna see Saw. We know we're gonna see Saw.
It's weird to think that we're
Um,
halfway done.
I know. Uh, Talaric said, now that you say it, based on how he looked in the fight, he probably had enough and felt a temptation. We kind of talked about that already.
Yeah. That's
Lewis, I'll save
my
that
best
comment.
bet right now.
Yeah. Lewis, I'll save that comment for the end. Talaric said, I love the scene though because of the danger in this spy element. You never know who to trust. Everything is always on the line. Talking
Yeah.
about the scene in Andor. I agree. I think it's a good spy scene. I think it's still a little dumb with how much work they put into characters that they're just gonna make that choice. So uh finishing it off, Talaric said Skeen was always a dangerous character, as shown with the knife attack and or head actress. I think we both agree with that
Yeah.
based on what happens in the scene. I
Yeah.
just, again, dumb character move for how well they've treated characters so far.
I completely agree. I just feel like they didn't make it clear enough to me why he would want to betray, besides just that,
Yeah.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So after Cassian kills Skeen, he goes into the doctor's office with his blaster raised, and he basically says, I'm taking the money I was promised, offers the doctor 30,000 credits for his ship, um, and hands the Sky Kyber back to Vel. He goes to leave, and then Vel's like, hey, Nimic wanted you to have this. And it's the journal with all of his writings in it. And Cassian's like, I don't want it. And
He's like, don't
Vel
give that
basically
to
is like,
me.
it's his last request. You're stuck with it.
You got to tell him no then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so Cassian takes the journal, and that's where we end. And so you've got to think, okay, we're going to get a little bit of filler. He's probably going to investigate the journal a little bit. I don't think he's going to return to Ferrix. It would be very dumb for him to go back to Ferrix.
Unless that's like the finale of the season.
Yeah. And which I can see him going back, but at this point, I think he knows he's going to find some way to get credits back to his mom, maybe to some of his friends. But I think he's going to work towards not necessarily maybe here, but maybe that will be the Beau Willimont arc is okay, he's more interested in joining the rebellion because I think he gets involved with Saul first. Saul is like Cassian's type of rebel. I feel like that's a possibility there.
I was wondering, that's something I had thought about before this season when we found out Saul was going to be in the season. I have to go back and watch Rogue One, but did Cassian and Saul seem to know each other in Rogue One, or did they even like? I don't remember if they even came face to face with each other, because if I'm remembering correctly, I think Cassian only came face to face with Saul's people. I don't know if
I
he
think
actually
so.
came in contact with Saul himself.
I wonder if he didn't want to talk to Saul at that point because Saul splits up and Cassian didn't go with him. Like I wonder if that's why.
I could see that.
Um So I think for me, my biggest point of issue is some of the sensitivity stuff in this episode, but then also just the character issues.
Yeah,
I feel like Skeen's jump to this point shows a lack of care and really just doesn't follow the trend of what they've had so far. I think I'm the only one on Twitter right now to have talked bad about this episode. A lot of people like Lewis when he joined in was like, this has been the best episode so far. A lot of people on Twitter, I've seen that as well. This has been the best episode. I have really big issues with the way characters are treated. I was really attached to Skeen, and maybe that's why I'm so pissed off about this choice.
I
But
was
I think
too,
it's a
so I feel
legitimate
the
issue.
same way. No, I think I'm probably viewing it the same way you are. We have attachment to the character, so we definitely had this idea in our head of how it should go, and I get that the idea that Cassian does need to be a suspicious person, so obviously they're going to reinforce his suspicion from time to time. But I liked the idea of Cassian meeting somebody who he expected to betray him and then didn't betray him,
Yeah.
because I don't know, it doesn't seem like he's had that yet. And I guess that's what Jin eventually will be. So maybe they're just going to keep giving us characters that almost give Cassian enough hope, and then they pull it away just that way when Jin does it, it's that much sweeter.
Don't tell me that. I don't
Ju-
want to be disappointed.
I'm just saying, at this point now, anytime they introduce somebody to get close to Cassian, I'm going to prepare for them to betray him. I'm just prepared for it.
And we'll see what happens. But Lewis said this in Mando, our next level Disney Star Wars. I do think this has been a top tier show, and I've really enjoyed how they've treated the characters. Um, I think potentially one of the issues though is they have so many characters to take care of and try and show their sides of what they're fighting for, what they're fighting against. Um, and so you gotta find a way to narrow it down to the ones that matter.
Agreed.
And so I hope that's something that they choose to go forward with in season 2 is maybe shortening the cast list a little bit and giving us a better view of the characters involved. For the last half of the season, I want them to be a little more Star Warsy. This has felt really down to earth. I need a little more Star Wars.
No, I completely get it. In fact, the only time during this episode that felt Star Warsy to me, there was probably 3 real moments that felt Star Warsy and not something set on Earth. There was during the meteor storm.
Mhm.
Um, there was when they were getting on that trawler, or like that train when they were loading it all the like money and stuff up. That felt like a very Star Warsy like machinery to me. And then
Yeah,
the doctor, when they were at the doctor's office and he was like he had his forearms and like you see all the
yeah,
tech around, that all felt Star Warsy, but honestly that was pretty much it. The rest of it all felt like you could have changed a little bit of the aesthetics and I could have easily believed that it was set on Earth.
yeah.
Even
So I
the
just,
alien tribe was all humans. I
yeah,
mean,
and so I think it's stuff like that, right? Where like you see aliens involved, and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't in our galaxy. This is something else.
mhm,
But this episode felt so real and so realistic that it's you need something to differentiate it. And
agreed.
I'm not saying that Andor isn't Star Wars. I think it just needs to be more Star Wars.
It definitely gives that vibe that we were kind of promised with Tony Gilroy of it feels like a Star Wars, like it does feel like a legitimate Star Wars made by somebody who was not a huge fan of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like they're trying to avoid the Star Wars. It just feels like it's not something they think about on the same level as somebody like us who we
Yeah.
want the Star Wars. Like that's what we're there
Yeah.
for. So
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
agreed.
Well, y'all, we have 6 more episodes of Andor. So we have the rest of October. And then we end up the day before Thanksgiving, of course, because what else would Star Wars do? Other than cut into my travel time for
Yeah.
holidays. I don't know. So I guess that's it. Obviously we'll be covering news next week. So that will be if you have anything that you're interested in hearing us talk about, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Alliance without the A in the wars. Very important. Don't forget it. Would love to hear from y'all, especially if there's topics y'all want us to cover. The other thing to remember that I forgot to remit to mention at the beginning of the episode is we're doing a giveaway. First prize, the entirety of Wave 1 of Phase 2 books specifically. So I will send you all those in hardcover. If you are an international listener, then I will send you the Amazon gift card value for the books in US dollars. The second prize is the War of the Bounty Hunters Companion, War of the Bounty Hunters paperback or issue, like trade paperback, and then Crimson Rain trade. So that is second prize. Again, international listener, I will send you the Amazon value in a gift card format for US dollars. So all you have to do is be following us on Twitter and retweet the thing every time you retweet a we're live talking about this on YouTube or the pod cast drop on Thursdays. If you retweet one of those, that is a singular entry. Again, if you rate and review us and you haven't done it before on your favorite podcatcher and send Star Wars Alliance on Twitter a screenshot, I will also count that as an entry. So lots of ways to enter. I just want to celebrate our 100th episode. So, Zach, where can they find you on Twitter?
They can find me at Flying Grace Sun. I mean, I'm usually talking about Star Wars. As you guys heard at the beginning of this, sometimes I rant about trying to get put into, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. So hashtag make Zach a Star Wars character. Um, that's about it.
All right, y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's at Slice of Katie. The show, I've said it a lot this episode. You can find on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Alliance without the A in the wars. Very important. Don't forget it. My other show on the GUA Podcast Network is Slice of Film, and that is on Twitter as well. It's at Slice of Film One. Mark and I talked about Hocus Pocus this past weekend. On Monday drop, so you can scroll back in the feed if you're on the joint feed for that. And then next week, Mark and I talked about Hocus Pocus too, and then Sarah jumped in for a future recording to talk about it as well. So you can check that out on Monday. And don't forget, Matt and I are continuing to talk about House of the Dragon, so scroll back in the feed for episode 8, like I mentioned previously. But also, we'll be back next week on Monday for episode 9, the penultimate episode of season 1, which is always a banger in Game of Thrones. So, with that, I want to wish everyone a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the force be with you.